Well, this is rather interesting for me to be somewhat the visible person and have the person that is not quite so visible, but a heck of a lot smarter that can speak to you today. We were speaking together at Corbin a number of months ago, years ago, I guess, and Gayle spoke first, and then I spoke afterwards, and we were raising some money there. I think we did a pretty good job on that. But I said, all of you are probably want to know what the definition of oxymoron is, and that was oxy. Well, from 6 months then on, everybody called me a moron. You know, that was it was not too good. But really, I didn't really understand what this gig was about when Katie was talking to me, and I thought, what a great idea it is to have the younger people to talk about husbands and wives, and what do you talk about when someone's a little more visible than the other person? And I have a list of people that I've really have respected. Some of these you won't know who they are. Lee Iacocca, Ad Rutschman, Ken Austin, ADAC, one of the largest dental equipment companies in the world. 80% of the market. Wouldn't you love to have 80% of the market from what you're? 80% of the market of the whole friggin' world in dental equipment. Anyway, that's those guys. Carl Roskus and Larry Epping. How many of you could say who their wives are? See, you wouldn't. And every one of those people, Ad Rutschman, for example, or even like Peter Courtney or whoever, all these that have written about their autobiographies have all said that their wives, they happen to be the wives, and it can be the other way around, but they said that their spouse contributed 100% to their success, and I can really say that about Gayle Lorraine. We've been married 60 years. Just a little tidbit there. About 3 days before our anniversary, July 13th of last year, Gayle says it's not working. I said, "What do you mean it's not working?" She said that the marriage is not working. And remember, Dick, I don't believe in divorce. Murder, I believe in. So, but I hope, Gayle, I don't know exactly what you're, I know what we're going to do. We're going to do a collection on getting a different sweater for you. I think that's what we should, that's probably what we should do. Nice jewelry, though, you have. But seriously, after she speaks, there's some questions. I'm going to bail. I got something else to do, and I didn't want to be involved in what you would maybe say, because I maybe would hold it against you. But seriously, though, really, we've lived here 53 years. 53 years we lived here, and so we really feel like this is really home to us. And that's the reason that we've stuck around. That's the reason that we've invested in the community. And so if you have any questions of her on how to sustain 53 years, then you need to do that. Gayle, have at it.
Well, I'm glad to see all these young faces. I'm old, and you're not, and so I'm really excited to talk to you today. And I remember asking whoever, Katie, I think, what in the world would the Chamber of Commerce want to know about from me? And I was known as the silent spouse. I didn't really like that, but because I'm not silent, but that's the category I'm in. I know that the real reason you came today and made the bother is because you wanted to know how to survive 60 years of being married to the Energizer Bunny. I want to tell you a little bit of the story of my life and then how we met and the world that we've been living in since then. I was born in January 7th, 1942, 1 month after Pearl Harbor was bombed. And that was a long time ago. And my early years I spent up in the Cascade Mountains. My father worked on a hydroelectric dam on the Rogue River. And it was a company. It was called COPCO at the time, called California Oregon Power Company. And we were part of the families that lived there, and we lived in the houses they provided. And most of the winter, I had to wear snowsuits to school with my skirt underneath. We didn't wear pants in those days. And my dad dug a snow tunnel for between our house and the bus stop so that we could go through this tunnel to get to school. And then in the 4th grade, we moved to Roseburg, Oregon. Roseburg Indians, Diana, yes. And Dick and I met in high school, but I thought he was way too wild and I didn't want anything to do with him. And I remember one time when he and his friend Dave Davis were drag racing down I-5. And all of the plaza part of Roseburg High School, at that time, there wasn't a lot of trees and bushes, and you could see up to the interstate freeway. And here they come, and a lot of the kids knew about it, but we were standing everybody was out there. I mean, almost the whole school. It's a big school. Watching this drag race on I-5, and I thought, what an idiot. And it convinced me that there wasn't much to this guy besides stupid. And so I stayed away from him. But in the spring of 1960, long before any of you were born, we both tried out for the senior class play, and Roseburg had an amazing theater department, amazing at that time. Lots and lots and lots of students went out for the plays. And that year, it was called Our Town by Thornton Wilder. And I got the role of Emily, and Dick was George. And he remembered his lines. That was the first time I thought he had any merit. And then, and he was very, very popular and vocal in school, and I was just a student. And so, anyway, we met for sure and got acquainted on that play. And it was interesting because we dated in the play in part of the way it's set up, a very primitive kind of a set for the play. And we sat on two wooden chairs in a make-believe kind of scenario. It's very simple stagecraft on that one. And then we got married in the play. I remember having to find a used wedding dress, and then I died in the play at the end. And it's kind of a poignant play. Some of you may have seen it or read about it before, but Emily, after she dies, is given one day to return to Grover's Corners, this little Midwest town, and she was looking at and remembering things that were part of her life. Not too realistic, but it was a good play. And she never appreciated all that she had before she lost it. And so her final line in the play was, "Oh, Earth, you're too wonderful for anybody to realize you." And that line has stuck in my head ever since. I received a scholarship to Lewis and Clark College in Portland, and Dick, on the merits of his father, who was an alumni at Linfield, barely got into Linfield, and it's now Linfield University, and he did not do well. Actually, his grades were so bad that he and his roommate, he's not here, so I can tell this on him. He and his roommate's name was Animal, if that gives you any clue. and I thought, this guy is really over the moon, but he didn't buy books because he took trips up to Portland to see me. And so he didn't do really well without books. And it went to gas money. And so, and I realized as the year began to end that the only way that our relationship was going to survive was if I went to Linfield. And so I transferred, and I was more comfortable anyway a lot of rich kids that went up there. I was just a little out of my class. So I was glad to go to Linfield. And after our junior year in college, we were married in the summer of 1973. 63, sorry. Skipped 10 years. Anyway, I was a major I had an English major, and I had certificate to teach, and so I taught at Franklin High School in Portland, and I taught English, and then down at McNary I did also, but plus some substitute teaching. And I had received a Bachelor of Arts then in 1964, and Dick received a Bachelor of Science and in business, and he did get out of Linfield. He really did. He graduated. Actually, his grandparents, who had a huge ranch with Black Angus cattle in Seaside, and they came off the ranch for the first time because they couldn't believe he was going to graduate from college. Then we lived in Portland then for several years, and in 1966, our first son, David, was born, who is now running the business. And Dick was also transferred. He got a job with the bank. Do you see him as a banker? And anyway, he started a job at the downtown bank, Loudon Bush, and I was doing some teaching, and then we adopted our daughter after a really bad struggle with a second pregnancy where I almost died, and so we decided we'd adopt, and she's just been an absolute joy. But it became very evident that Dick had way too much energy to be a banker. And so he decided to go into the car business. And he started out as a general manager. He always pushed people and always made success of wherever position he was in. And the time that he bought the Take Dodge, it was called Take Dodge to begin with, it was the prime interest rate was 23%, a really good time to invest in a car business, especially Dodge, which at the time was not the premier car. And so, he's the risk taker, not me. I'm a non-risk taker. And so he did this, and I was really scared because he had banker's hours, things very stable, and now he worked all the time and crazy hours, and it was very, very hard on our relationship. That was one of the stressors. So, and then later he bought a really bad other dealership, which was Hyundai at the time. Not the best investment, but it turned out to be an amazing franchise. So, and David, our son, is running that now. Perseverance, that is my other name. You persevere. Okay, I decided he was worth plugging along with. Running 2 businesses, all seasons, all months, all the frustration of gas shortages, we literally had to take numbers on the day we were allowed to get gas. Some of you have no idea what that involves. Tuesday, Thursday, Monday, Wednesday, sometimes Friday, Saturday were exchanged. It was the craziest thing. So we all had numbers and days that we were allowed to get gas. So that, handling customers, factory demands, the Chrysler Corporation was very demanding of their dealers, and all of those cash crunches and scary times made our life extremely stretched and fragile at times. I'm just telling you the truth. And so he did make an effort, I have to say, to be home at a fairly reasonable dinner time so that he would be with the kids. But those early days were very, very demanding, and sleepless nights for me. One thing I forgot over here, I'll turn it back. In the end of 1970s, Dick's guys in his management team ordered 320 Aries Ks. They were maroon, and they were blue, and they were white. Dick still drives the maroon one. I won't get in it. It's too hard to get out of it. And all of the 320 cars that came in had the wrong engines. And we thought it was going to be the end of our business. That's a lot of cars and a lot of money. And they were meant to be the state workers' cars, but the state refused them. So he had to sell every one of those cars, every one of them, or we would have gone under. And he did, but I have to tell you one little story. There was Lee Iacocca, he mentioned just now, was the head of the Chrysler Dodge Corporation at that time. And he liked Dick because he was obviously always meeting quotas because he was working so hard. And so he took 42 of those 320 cars, and he, together with a partner, a young man named Donald Trump, if you can believe it, in a Coral Gables project, needed patrol cars for Coral Gables. It seems so ridiculous now. But you'll have to ask him about that story. It's quite a story, and how he got cars back to them on the train, and the things that happened on the train, and some other things. So there was always problems. And then the death of my mother when she was 57, and later my brother Michael, who was a fighter pilot in Vietnam, 2 tours of duty, contacted Agent Orange, and later died of a cerebral hemorrhage, was my hero. And those deaths were extremely, extremely difficult, especially after having lost our second son in that second pregnancy. And then Dick's mother, dad, and then mother died, and we were devastated with these deaths. And you will all have or will face that sometime or other. You're going to lose somebody that you really love and care about. And that is the main issue, main reason why I wanted to talk to you today, because the only reason that we did was the light that was in our lives. And for me, it was Jesus. That's all there is to it. I wouldn't be standing here if it weren't for him. And he is the reason that my life has focused and been around and kept me through a marriage that was really difficult sometimes, really, really difficult. But I persevered. And the only reason I did was because of Jesus. And it's how the marriage has lasted 60 years. That's a long time. I've had physical pain, a lot of physical pain. I have arthritis, I have, all kinds of stuff, but tremendous struggles. And you will too. There's going to be hard things going on in your life. And probably right now, for some of you, really hard things. Life is hard. It's very hard. But something about the energy that I feel in this group, I think you're pretty good at persevering. Following in 2020, with COVID, the year we all want to forget, I began the most difficult journey of my entire life. I was 5 weeks waiting for surgery on an endometrial cancer, and shock of my life to find out that it was such a bad one. and my chances of survival weren't great. And so I had to wait 5 weeks to get into Providence St. Vincent Hospital in Portland. And then 2 days after my surgery, they shut the hospitals down for the COVID patients, if you remember. That was a very bad time. And so after I had the surgery, and they took the tumor and all of that, and then I had to wait a little bit of time, which was good. I had to heal a little bit. And then the post-surgery treatment was incredibly difficult for me. I had 5-hour chemo sessions at the time when nobody was allowed in the clinic. No partner, couldn't have my daughter, couldn't have Dick, although it would have driven him right up the wall. And then couldn't have my grandkids come in or anything. It was really a desolate time. And I have to tell you, in a room that was probably pretty much as full as this room, having everybody in masks and everybody sick and everybody afraid, not only of the cancers they were dealing with and the chemos they had to go through, but because of COVID. And our immune systems go down to nothing. And so that was a very, very scary time. But that wasn't as bad as what came next. And I had a little bit of a break, and then I began weeks and weeks and weeks of radiation on my stomach, which includes not only the area where the cancer had been, but all the other part of my organs. And so I was constantly sick and nauseated, and you know the other part to that. And so that was very, very difficult. Dick tried to help me, but he's miserable in the kitchen. He can make popcorn, and that just didn't appeal. And he could cook rice, but then he started bringing things in that were inedible, and then to me anyway, because I was just nauseated all the time. But somehow we made it through. I told him I wanted to have some peaches. I don't know why, it sounded good and they would be easy to eat. So he goes out to that fruit stand that's out on the the way to the coast, and bought 7 cases of peaches. He doesn't do things in a little way. I said, we'll be eating these for 10 years, because all I wanted was 1 peach. And there were other things that were like that, but it kept me laughing anyway. I mean, I said, where did you put 7 cases? Oh, they're out in the garage, I can get them. I mean, big cases of peaches. And so then when the radiation was getting more and more difficult for me, and they make a form, and then you have to climb up into this machine, and it goes around you. And it's very quick, but it takes a long time to get positioned. And so I have to tell you that it was in that period of time that I started saying the 23rd Psalm every single day, every day that I had to go. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He maketh me lie down in green pastures. He leadeth me beside the still waters. He restoreth my soul. He leadeth me in paths of righteousness for his name's sake. Yea, though I go through the valley of the shadow of death, and I did, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me, thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Thou preparest a table before me in the presence of my enemies. Thou anointest my head with oil, my cup runneth over and over and over and over and over and over. My cup runneth over. And then, surely goodness and mercy will follow me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever. That was my antidote to climbing into that radiation machine. Some of you have had difficult treatments in the medical world. I know you have. There's no way. We're human. There's things that happen to us and loved ones. And you know what grief involves. But I had that light. I had the light, Jesus Christ, coming from within me, always protecting me, always my shepherd close at hand. And he guided me. And I had numbers of prayer warriors that believe in healing prayer that prayed for me, prayed through that whole time. And so now for 4 years, I go in and have CAT scans and blood work, no cancer. Hallelujah. And I have to tell you, the Lord must have had something else he wanted me to do, because I was really, really sick. So I thought, there's no way, but I'll just keep going. If this is what you want, I'll keep going. And I did. It's called perseverance. Every day I try to eat healthy. I work out every single day, because if I don't, and I won't walk. I won't be able to move my hands or anything. So that's this a given. I work out, but then I live with the Energizer Bunny who works out all the time. So, and then I got to resume a Bible study that I have taught for 50 years. Different people all the time, but in my home. And it was a goal that I had. Okay, Lord, you want me to live? Then you're going to have to give me the strength to do it. And then in we sold our business, began to sell our business to David, our son, when Dick turned 60, and that was 21 years ago. And he's paid us off, and it is totally his business now. And because of that, and the longevity that Dick has had, because all of his family were gone before 70. And so it was a risk, but he decided that the community needed him. And so that was when he got really involved in youth and families, children and families. And I really was completely supportive of that, because I felt like that was such a meaningful thing to do with our money and his talent and our time, his time. And he began that whole process with the McLaren Youth Correctional Facility. He came alongside a lot of those young boys, young men, to get their GED, and some went on to community college, and even some of them went on, while they were incarcerated, went on to get a bachelor's degree, and we paid for a lot of those before the state got the grand idea to maybe help these kids with their college and their post-high school. So, and then started with the program called Family Building Blocks, which has grown and grown and grown. Dick was on the beginning of that. And then there was lots others. The YMCA was one of the most recent projects that he put his heart, soul, mind, and money into. And I have to say, the money was scary for me, because we're old now. And I kept saying we need to have some left if we live longer. Don't tell him I said that. And then the Union Gospel Mission was such an amazing project that he took on, and was just determined to raise the money, because he believed the reason was worth the work. And of course, I was always praying for him, but I was behind the scenes. And then Youth with a Mission, way out on Battle Creek. We've supported them and helped them. And the Boys and Girls Club out on Lancaster, and there's so many others, I can't even remember them all. And he's still doing that, still really cares about children, families, youth, and adults too. It's helped many, many adults. He just kept on serving. Sometimes I said, Dick, would you stop? Would you just rest? But he's the Energizer Bunny. That's how he's put together. And he'll probably be doing some project the day he dies. So I want to leave you with this idea, just a couple of suggestions. Start counting your blessings because, oh, earth, people don't realize how beautiful, how wonderful, how amazing you are. And we have to be thankful for our homes, our cars, our families, our treasures that we think are so important here, our friendships, and not complain. We have to stop complaining. There's a lot to complain about. Believe me, I know. There's a lot in our city, state, the whole country, and the world to complain about. We live in very perilous times. But counting your blessings is an antidote to that coming down into depression thing that we can get so hopeless and disenchanted with our lives. Just try switching and blessing. Bless God for the gifts that you do have. You're able to walk, and you're able to read and see with your eyes. You can hear. I didn't know if I was going to be able to do that. So start counting your blessings and stop complaining. And then another one, mend your fences right now, as soon as you can. Work it out, but start mending the fences in your family and in your friendships that have gone sour, the relationships that have been destroyed because of political differences or whatever. Just mend the fence. It's up to you sometimes to be the aggressor, even though that's not fair because you've been wounded. And I have found that's the only way that I can survive. I cannot have that feeling of wanting revenge and that boiling anger to stay there. I cannot do it, or I will not live. It has a way of destroying you. So apologize if you have to, open a door, do something, mend fences. And there's a question I'd like to ask you, because I got asked this. Do you want to be right, or do you want to be well? How much do you want to be right? So much so that you'll risk a relationship? Do you want to be right, or do you want to be well? And take a little bit of a break from screens. I'm old, so it's not a problem for me, but you are so attached to your phones, to your pads, to your TVs, whatever it is, and just take a break from screens. And maybe give a thought to how valuable you are, how important you are to God, that He has designed you with a purpose for your life. And you're not going to know it if you're constantly diverted by reading, seeing, distraction after distraction. And you know, if you paused, even for 10 minutes in your car or whatever, without the radio, I know Dick it drives him crazy when I want everything off. And he comes and turns every single light on, every TV on, every fireplace on, every cupboard door is open. There's movement all the time. And then I go and shut them all and turn them off. It's how we've managed. He goes, I was still there. I said, no, you weren't. You were gone. And my dad always said, you leave a room, you turn the light off. But what you'll discover is how much God loves and cherishes you. It's astounding how much He loves you and wants to empower you to be all you can be. So you'll find out that you're fearfully and wonderfully made. Really you are, in His image. So it's persevere. And I want to leave you with part of Psalm 139 that says, how precious to me are your thoughts, O God. How vast the sum of them. Were I to count them, they would outnumber the grains of sand. and when I awake, I'm still with you. So it's not what happens to you, I would tell you, my young leaders. It's what happens in you that will help you sustain through the years. And you get to be 82. Thank you for inviting me. Now,
Check, 1, 2, check, mic, check. So we do like, in all this, I know we've got some questions out here for you as well.
I'm
This
sure
is,
there's plenty.
I will say, I don't know if you knew this, but I was also in Our Town, but a different one, obviously, not the same show you were in. But I was actually in the opera, which is funny. They made an opera out of Our Town, yeah. And I was also George.
Oh, wow.
So I knew I liked you for some reason. It's because you were Emily, yeah.
Well,
By some weird proxy, we got married somewhere along the
he's
lines.
the George, wherever he went.
I think he. Who's George? Oh, he's over in the corner. Oh, hey.
He's back there.
I know he took off for a second. You got to wonder though. You went with all of the strife that you went through recently. Maybe that was God putting you with Dick to say, okay, learn how to persevere, and this is how hard I'm going to make it, so that you can make it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
He's got it.
Oh gosh. All right. So anybody in the room have questions as we're walking around here?
I'll answer the best I can.
My question is, if you were to give advice to someone like Dick in a younger phase of life, what would you tell that person in response to like being mindful of their spouse during that season?
That's a good question. And of course, you've got to communicate. He wasn't the greatest at communicating, but he knew where I was standing. But I would say to a young man or woman just recently married, where we differ from my age when people got married in their early 20s, that was just the norm, was that you have to consider you can't do life alone. You may think you're in charge of your family, your business, your work, but you're not. You're not. So just go away today and know that you have to have help. And that help that comes from above is going to be a lot more powerful than your self-will. But I have made a decision of my will that I'm going to trust God when I get into a radiation machine. I trust you, Lord. So you have to come to the place where you trust him completely. And I know that's probably a beginning place for some of you, but I can't tell you enough how what's going on inside of you will make a difference with your wife and your children, with your spouse, your husband and your children, with your job and your people that you work with, your employees. Understanding that we need each other to hold each other up and to support each other even when we don't like each other. Does that sound crazy? And to just understand that we are designed, God designs us to know him and to include him in all of our decisions. Just say, God, help me. You know, you might be surprised if you start asking hard questions. Asking hard questions. Are you real? Where are you, God? I don't understand why that happened. Well, he's given us free reign on the earth. We're not puppets. And so he doesn't manipulate us. And if you make the choices, you usually have to live with them, but you can also survive them as well. Is that helpful? Okay.
Other questions? Yeah. I got you. It's for the recording.
So I was going to ask something kind of similar to Alex, so I'll kind of build off that. So as a new business owner who's married with 2 little kids at home, like what advice would you have as far as just finding that balance to like shut the business brain off, to be present with the family at home and not just be in that mode all the time?
Well, that was harder for Dick than it might be for you. but but he was pretty good about trying to. I mean, his day off was Wednesday, and he worked every weekend, and a lot of times he worked all the time in those early days when he was managing, and then as an owner with our very life on the line, our financial life on the line with that 320 Aries situation. But I would say you have to make a decision. You are the man. You have to make a decision to do that, and to allow yourself to break away for periods of time, an afternoon, whatever, however it is, so you can be with your kids. But I have to say now men are more involved in child rearing than they were when my kids were little. They just weren't. Dads earned the living, mom did everything else. Well, thankfully that has changed over the last few years. But I do know a lot depends on what you choose to do. And you make a decision by your will to ask God to give you that freedom to leave, even though there's things you need to be managing all the time. It's a balance, and it's precarious. It's hard, but you can do it. You can persevere. Anybody else?
If I do my math right, it sounds like your cancer diagnosis was in your late 70s at probably the worst time with COVID. Obviously, the radiation was hard, but was the isolation of COVID harder?
Mm-hmm. It was, because I couldn't be around anybody that was coming from the outside because I was so vulnerable. And so, but I did see people, they would come, and I loved it. They would wear a mask, and I'd say, "You can take it off. I want to see your face," and I managed to survive through that, but not a lot. Mostly, I was just on the couch, but and I'm not a couch potato. I'm always moving around, so that was a really hard time to be inactive. I love to read, but for some reason, I didn't even want to read. I could barely watch TV. It was like, just hang on. This is another day to get through. But it really taught me a lot of things, that life is really worth living. Every day is a treasure, is a gift, and we're only given these. These are the days we're given. Today we're assured of God's presence in our life today. Tomorrow, you have to start over. And but you have sufficient grace to handle today. So, okay. Oh.
Hi, Gayle.
Hi, Jessica.
Thank you for sharing today. Learning a lot from you all the time. I'm curious, when you were a teacher and taught high school kids, what was your favorite thing about working with that age group?
I really liked high school kids. I still do, but I taught in the years where there was tremendous respect in the classroom, and I had the ultimate authority. And if I taught in Franklin, and Portland's a very middle to low class area, and these kids were poor, but they were a lot bigger than me. A lot of the boys were, and so I had to have that, because when I went to high school, to Rosebrook High School, there was no question. You did not do what kids do to teachers now. You don't talk back. You didn't do that. You could see them afterwards. They could talk to you, but it was just the given that you respected teachers and policemen and firemen. We've culturally lost that sense of respect, and so. But I loved their minds growing, and a lot of them were like sponges. They wanted to learn how to write, how to read how to read. And I was really hard teacher, because I made them read and write. And now kids don't know how to read or write. I remember the day my granddaughter came in and said, I can't use cursive anymore because she went to a grade school that was a Christian school and they learned how to do cursive. Now they've completely eliminated that from the schools. And so you print your name, you don't write it out. And she was told by her teacher, the other kids can't read your writing, so you have to do print. And I was steaming because we need to learn how to write at least our name and not just put it in block letters. So, but and ages, the time has changed so dramatically. There was more respect for each other in a lot of ways. I know there were many problems socially and everything in that day, but there was a sense of right and wrong in the community. Even the really bad guys with the rolled up shirt and the cigarettes in them but there was a general sense of right and wrong, and they knew what they were doing was bad, but they did it anyway. Now there are no boundaries, there's no moral guide, there's no rights and wrongs, everything's okay, you can do whatever you want, and consequently you have confused, angry, belligerent kids because they're rudderless. And I'm deeply grieved at what I see right now. I don't think I would last a week teaching now because I wouldn't put up with some of this stuff. And I'm not a big person, so it's a different day. But kids are still need to learn to be strong and have some grit. Part of the reason why I'm standing here is just it takes grit. You've got to pull it up, and God helps you do that. So anyway, is that enough?
Fantastic. I think it's kind of problematic that Dick says you believe in murder. We wouldn't want you to go back and be a high school student or high school teacher right now. It's like, yeah, that's probably a bad idea. Anyways, off-color jokes aside, I apologize. Thank you very much. Give a round of applause, everybody.